Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast. And find us on Facebook. All right, Eugene here. We are quickly going to talk about the Doctor Who thing that just dropped today. The 14th Doctor is here. BBC's Children in Need 2023 dropped, and it was like a 5-minute thing that they used to do, and it's just with David Tennant as the 14th Doctor, coming into a very much canon event, if you will. And do you want to talk about that part, Brian?
Yes. What I want to talk about is how there was a little meta moment when the 14th Doctor says, "Canon's being shredded right now." So he shows up right as the Dalek are being named for the very first time, and so they're coming up with anagrams of Khaled, and it's very funny.
And we see a young Davros, but not so young as a child, which we recently did, but a Khaled Davros before he gets all those alterations and loses limbs and gets put into the Dalek sort of chair.
Yeah, he's still human looking.
Yeah, so I think that's funny. And I was like,
it's very fun, and same actor. It's Julian Glover.
Julian Bleach.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, it's not Julian Glover, is it? Oops. That would be a different Davros. And he's also doing his best stereotypical Nazi. The 14th Doctor also gives a little call out to on film. Because boy, is that a Nazi. And I don't remember in Genesis the Daleks, but did their uniforms have the little SS lightning bolts? I don't remember. Which the 14th Doctor also gives a little call out to when he realizes what's going on. Wait. Is this the Genesis of the Daleks?
And then the I guess the adjutant or the technician,
Castavillian.
Yeah, is very much like, oh, that's a good word. It's a great word. Oh, that's good. And yes, I just looked it up. They are in that same sort of black uniform with the lightning bolts on the collar type of thing. So
okay,
yes.
So that's a tie-in.
You can watch this on YouTube. It's officially on the BBC Doctor Who YouTube page, I believe. So spoilers. We should have put that up front.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's really. I know there are people out there who really aren't happy that Russell's coming back. They feel that the show's going backwards, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah, because when it was announced, we did a special episode way back when Russell T Davies was announced as coming back as the showrunner, and we were excited that it was going to be fun. It was going to inject that sort of fun that I think we saw in this, and I'm like, if this is a preview of what's to come, I'm in all the way.
I really couldn't stop smiling when I wasn't laughing. I was just smiling. It just felt fun and quick and, lighthearted. I don't want David Tennant for an entire series, but knowing that he's in 3 specials is perfect for me. I'm just so happy. This was just great. And I didn't know about it until yesterday. So this morning while I was at work, I kept checking. It's like, and it hasn't broadcast in the UK yet. Come on.
You can also find this on our Facebook page and our Instagram account. We've posted both of them there. They were shareable. So, thank you BBC for making that shareable so everybody can enjoy.
Yeah, and I think they did that because it's a Children in Need special.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see, it doesn't even have any ads on it. It's just up there, and it's just got Children in Need on it. So it calls out for what it is and donations, and this is to help people. And God, it's great to have it back. Oh, Now all we need is the proms.
Yeah, we need to get a new album of music, and then I guess the second season will start.
Yes. We're getting a Christmas special.
We are. And
No more holiday specials.
Yeah, speaking of that, the new Doctor Who special comes out in almost 1 week's time. If you are listening to this as it drops, it'll be November 25th, a Saturday. So, thank you.
In America, we'll still be in food comas. So,
or our second food coma.
Yeah.
USA.
Gluttony.
So yeah, please check that out. It's a lot of fun. And I look forward to seeing what's going to happen in this new season and this new era that we're going to be ushered into. Today's episode is the Season 2 finale of the Sarah Jane Adventures. In Season 4 with Dawn and Noble, there was a failed invasion of Earth by the Centaurans in the Poison Sky and the Centauran Stratagem. That's where Cog's space pod crashes on Earth from that failed invasion. And then in Sarah Jane Adventures Season 2, the last Centauran story, there is a report of strange lights at a radio telescope, which leads the gang on Bannerman Road to investigate. Sarah then is battling her oldest enemy, the Centaurans, which she first met in her first appearance, the Time Warrior. And in that same episode, it ends with Maria and her dad moving to America. And then in the pilot episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures, we meet Mrs. Wormwood. That's the last time we saw her with the bubble shock soda. So today's episode is Enemy of the Bane. It's the return of Mrs. Wormwood, Ka the Centauran, and a dear old friend from Sarah Jane's past. This story is written by Phil Ford, directed by Graham Harper. It originally aired on the 1st and the 8th of December 2008. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, this is Brian.
Hello, this is Frank.
Hi, it's Kelsey.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, it's Heather.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Always happy to be here.
In her triumphant return.
Luke is telling Sarah Jane about a nightmare he had with Mrs. Wormwood and the Bane. When Rani arrives to tell them her mom has disappeared, they soon realize that Mrs. Wormwood has taken her but left a clue to her location. After driving to an industrial warehouse, Sarah Jane and Rani find her mom in a trance. Mrs. Wormwood used her as bait to get Sarah Jane's attention. She asks for help and says that the entire galaxy is in danger. A number of Bane appear who say that Mrs. Wormwood is their enemy. Using her stunning ring, she knocks them out.
I did a little Moffat on the stunning ring.
Yeah, nice.
How do you do the gesture?
Like this?
It was very stylish. I liked it.
She committed every time.
It's a Vulcan salute in one hand and then show the ring in the other.
Yeah.
I think I may have watched one Sarah Jane adventure other than this in my entire life. So I came into this pretty cold. I don't think I was with you guys for the last episode. I've never met this Mrs. Wormwood before. I gathered that she had appeared before. But that actress looks super familiar to me. Do I know her from something other than this?
Let me... she played Moneypenny in the Pierce Brosnan era of James Bond. That's where I remember her from, but she's done a lot of other things.
I like her. I thought she did well. And I remember when we did the first episode of Sarah Jane, I had created Bubble Shock for everybody. I got an orange soda, and then I created the labels of Bubble Shock, so we all had that recording the episode.
I remember taking the Bubble Shock photos. I have no memory of recording the episode, nor do I have memory of watching the episode.
Well, Frank actually put like memory eraser in it.
I try to make it unique, in the real way.
That explains so much about my life.
So Heather, she also played Lady Rosamund Painwick.
Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey.
Thank you.
I haven't seen Downton Abbey, but
she pops in like once or twice a season and steals every scene and then goes away.
That's the best kind of role to have, if you ask me.
I'm looking at her credits real quick. I don't see anything else that I would like. Oh, we've seen this.
She might just have one of those faces, and then the character itself, it's a very cliche character, but I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way. Like, I love this stock character, so to speak. Like,
this story is filled with writing and TV tropes that are done well. So I will bring up those. Well, I'll bring one up now. When Sarah Jane goes to, Rani is telling Sarah Jane that whatever's going to happen in this episode is now personal to me. I like that when series do that. When let's say if it's like CSI, where they're always investigating a crime, but then now one of the CSI members are the ones involved in the crime. They have to prove them innocent or save a member of their family. I like it when the script is kind of involving our main characters rather than a third party. So it's a trope that I like, because you get to see how characters are, and there's a little bit of reveal of their motivations and how things go down in an episode.
I also like that they didn't do it where, no, you have to be, distant. You're too close to this. And Ronnie's like, you're right, I'm too close to this. That's where I'm going.
And that's the other trope that I like, is that they acknowledged it and then they said, no, we're going to do what we want to do.
Right. Well, you jump right into the story, which is nice, and it doesn't feel like either episode has a lot of filler. Mm-hmm. It is all, we're going for the story, we're telling this, which is nice, and I thought it helped the pace go along. We can watch both of them back to back without having to worry about it. It's like flows it into a 1 hour show, which is really nice.
And the opening in the flower shop reminded me of a early New Who, Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the name.
Me too.
Bloom and lovely. Hated the bugs on the wall for Luke's bedroom. I mean, really, who has bug wallpaper? Yuck. But that's just personal. But no!
He's an artificial human, so he has different tastes.
I did like the way they used Rani as the exposition to explain what had happened before. Yeah. I thought they did it really well, that, it seemed a bit more organic, and they kind of sprinkle it throughout the 2 episodes where it's like, oh yeah, and then this happened. And they give you they do go video clips back, but they're short, they're not annoying. And it makes sense because Rani wasn't there when all this happened.
This is Rani's first season with the show, because, as I mentioned, Maria Jackson left in the first episode of season 2. And then after her departure, that's when Rani moves across the street with her family.
Mm.
No, in the real world, Maria the actress left to go to university, I think.
School, yeah.
Yes, and so
she wanted to better herself. Okay.
Well, she came, yeah. It was nice that she came back once in a while and just like a little video clip, off at school talking. So it was nice to see her once in a while. But Rani was a good character.
Yeah, the pace of the show and the flashbacks and everything is definitely more geared towards children, just to give them the highlights of what has happened before. But yeah, they didn't really go deep into the Rani character switch. But it was good.
I don't think they needed to.
No.
Yeah, that was earlier in the season.
Yeah, so it was good just to get the highlights of Mrs. Wormwood and I don't even think we saw the Centauran in the flashback.
Not
but
yet.
Right. But just to keep getting those little hints of what had happened before. Mm-hmm. They did a good job with that.
There were 2 parts that were definitely for kids or old Doctor Who that just like, well, this just has to happen, so we're going to do this. And so they had them running out, but her mom, Gita, is still in a trance. So she's running with her arms down by her side and just trying to move. It just was great. Yeah, that's the old way to do it.
I was thinking, like, why didn't she just snap her out of it before that?
Well, they had to hide the fact the mom couldn't figure out what was, that the mom couldn't figure out that her daughter's dealing with aliens, and they had to continue to hide that.
Have like that double identity.
Yeah. And the second time was when Luke trips later on. It's just, okay, we're just going to do it. Just get it over with. Don't think about it too much. It was pretty funny.
Now that we're talking about this part, it's another trope that I enjoy pointing out, is that when there is an enemy that needs to get the help of our heroes, and so they do something villainous with the intention of getting them to see that they are serious, that they need help.
Right.
And so kidnapping Gita but not harming her was nice.
Yeah.
I did like when Sarah Jane got pulled back. Yeah.
With the tentacle?
Video, that wasn't too bad, at the time. But it was a quick, okay, we got to just do this shot. They didn't put as much as they could have in the decision to make that. But I don't think it was needed for this. But I liked when Wormwood offers her hand to pick her up and Sarah Jane's about to take it and goes, oh no, what am I doing? I'm not falling for this.
I
thought that was a
do.
nice little bit. I liked it.
I don't know if it was needed, but I like that it was there because it really does prove that Mrs. Wormwood wants to do good. She really isn't there to kill Sarah Jane and the people. It's like, I'm going to go back and rescue Sarah Jane and not just let her die. So I think that kind of pumps up her character to be good.
To make us think that she's possibly good.
Yeah.
We find out that she's only doing it for her same altruistic reasons, but it was good. I liked that. I thought I agree with you. It was a fun part.
I still think kidnapping someone is not the way to prove that you're on their side, regardless of how it works out. I was like, that would make me sus. There had to be another way you could have gotten my attention, but it's fine. It's fine.
But in this story, it's the quickest way to get there.
I mean, it worked in terms of the story. It worked, but I would not have. I would have been like Sarah Jane. I would have been like, I'm not falling for this.
But in a lot of stories, they do that, where they do their evil ways, but for good. And it's like, oh, that's still not acceptable? A lot of stories have done things like that. But I did like also that Clyde, which is, was going, what is she? No, I thought she's all tentacles. And I was like, how much makeup do you use in the morning?
You can tell that this is definitely a kid's show because the Bane, as they truly are, look not as good as the Doctor Who show. They didn't have enough time or money for shadows. There were certain things that kind of stood out like that.
Plus, this show actually did air on the children's BBC network.
Yes,
it wasn't
CBBC.
on. It wasn't. Yeah, CBBC. It wasn't on one of the big. It wasn't on like BBC One that Doctor Who plays. This is definitely the anti-Torchwood.
Yes.
Remind me the actor's name who plays Sarah Jane.
Elizabeth Sladen.
Oh yes. Something I appreciated on the note of it being a kids show. Elizabeth Sladen. I appreciate how she doesn't phone in her performance for a kids show. Like, for instance, after she gets pulled back by the Bane, the tentacle and everything, and they're coming out of the warehouse, she's like, her legs she's limping a little bit, and she's like touching her leg as like, I noticed that, and I was like, I appreciate that. Like, I see, that you're, like, a kid is not going to, if she came out just walking fine, the kid's not gonna be like, hey, shouldn't her leg be hurting? She just got pulled with her leg just got pulled back like however many meters, right? But she as an actor, she made that decision to limp out of the warehouse, and I was like, I appreciated that.
Her commitment to the role. She does show a lot of passion in this episode, and in every episode that I've ever seen her in.
All two?
We've seen her in Doctor Who as well.
Oh, that's true.
As a young'un.
I think the lower budget also helps force the showrunners and the creators to get more creative about how to do things.
Yes.
So you end up with a much more physical show. Like Gita, her role in this episode, like she was falling, she was doing that, like running with her arms by her side, like being slapped, and being in a trance is also demanding. Like you have to focus, as an actor.
Like I even noticed that she wasn't blinking. I was like, that takes some effort.
Yeah. And then Sarah Jane, getting drugged physically, like however they did it, along a floor. Like they still had the camera following for some parts. So yeah, she definitely, was in a physical kind of filming position where it's not like a typical you're talking to somebody. So I think that helps, sell the activity and the action of the show without spending a lot of money on it. We don't have all the hallways of people running, but we get enough of those really specific physical like actions that help elevate it.
Yeah. Because like when you mentioned the Sarah Jane getting dragged back, you don't see that tentacle reach and like grab her leg, pull it back, and then a tentacle pulling her body through the hallway. You see enough of her body, like you cut off the frame at the ankles, so you don't see the tentacle around it. So I think keeping the budget lower helps make things more like you fill in the gaps. The show is telling us that our audience is smart enough to fill in the gaps.
And it's cheaper to do.
Yeah.
It's cheaper but effective. So yay. Plus.
I did appreciate that for the Mrs. Wormwood character, they did have her at the beginning try to play off her interest in Luke. Like I think she's like, do you have, what was the word she used? Not anomaly, but
Archetype.
Archetype,
yeah.
Yes.
Do you have the archetype? Oh no, okay. Oh, is Luke here? Oh, okay. He's not quite here yet. Oh, Luke. And then like, once she's there, it ramps up quick. But
You even referred to him as a failed experiment.
Yeah.
Which is another thing. When she butters up to him later, it's like, you just called him a failed experiment, lady.
I feel like if they were all together and just taking a breather, she's like, oh, so heard somebody bring up Luke, and then they're like, nobody brought up Luke. What are you talking about? Like, them getting into the car and driving away after that encounter.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just real quick. Anybody else think that the Bane looked like Galaxy Quest aliens?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
What were they called? I can't remember.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Galaxy Quest?
I just remember the white they would talk.
Mrs. Wormwood says that she wants to stop the Bane from destroying the galaxy. She tells them of the legend of Horath, an immortal dictator whose body and consciousness were hidden at opposite ends of the galaxy, and his body is somewhere on Earth. Mrs. Wormwood needs Sarah Jane to get the Tunguska scroll out of the Black Archives, UNIT's top secret vaults. The scroll will lead them to Horath's body. Sarah Jane takes Rani to see an old friend, Brigadier Sir Alistair Gordon Lethbridge-Stewart, UNIT's special envoy. Luke tells Mrs. Wormwood that Sarah Jane is his mother, not her. She made him the person that he is, but Mrs. Wormwood counters that she provided the raw material. She ends by saying they are both alone in the universe.
And Luke says, are you my mummy?
Oh,
no.
What a missed opportunity.
I know.
They bring up the Tunguska blast again. We just got that referenced in Forest of the Night. Was the other time that trees helped avert a planetary disaster. So apparently there's a scroll from that event.
Oh.
And Horath
The
always
scroll.
seems...
Sorry, say.
No,
No, you go, Frank.
No, you go.
Okay, I'm just wondering, so the scroll was supposed to call this?
This is the first time we're hearing it, so it does whatever the story needs.
But it was supposed to like summon some. Okay.
It's supposed to find the location. Be able to let you find the location of Horath, the body of Horath.
Oh, so it doesn't summon him; it just tells you where he is.
Right. From what they were saying.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, they didn't say GPS. Did they say like sat nav? Oh, it's sat nav or something like that.
Or I figured it was more like a dowsing rod, like as you pointed it, it's like go that way.
It had a lot of
Couldn't-
technology in it, though. Like it lit up from the inside and had writing.
It was very beautiful.
It was.
I know that they wanted it. I didn't really know what it was going to do, but
I thought the filming at the Black Archive was really neat. Like, they have these industrial sets and locations, and you could like some of the wide shots of them like not looking over the whole warehouse, but when they're just entering the warehouse, like I could buy that that's an actual warehouse and there's some parts behind them. And then they did the shot that is more animated of like all the alien gear. But I
Like
thought they
Indiana
did
Jones.
Indiana
yeah,
Jones
Yeah.
shot.
yes. I
Yeah.
thought they did a really nice job of mixing those two. It felt pretty natural.
Mm-hmm. And those archive cabinets that are stacked, and you have to do the wheel to turn them and move them. Like that's
I
just the
love
real
those
place.
I love
Yeah,
those things.
It's just the real place.
What if you get crushed in one? That's like always been my fear.
it's
But also,
it's movable enough. I think you can push your way out of it. It's not like a machine doing it.
wasn't it way too easy to get in there? Like she just checked a card.
I was like, you didn't check the back seat? You didn't do the mirror underneath the
You didn't do the mirror
chassis?
underneath? None of that.
You didn't run the dogs by him? Okay.
Are you gonna question the Brigadier?
Well, I
Take
love
that
the
chance?
blanket. I love the blanket over the head where there's actually somebody you can tell.
Yeah.
It's like,
By the way,
There's
the
supposed to
Brigadier's
be two people.
Brigadier's got a nice car. His
Yes, I
pension's
noticed.
really good.
and I always thought the Black Archive was under the Tower of London, but then because of this, it's like, oh, it's like Warehouse 13. There are different areas and different
Locations.
places for what's needed, and this is probably a low security, high security part of the Black Archive.
Yeah.
They're
I like
certainly not wiping your minds.
That's true, I think.
I do like Clyde's line here about the Black Archive. Why does that sound so cool and so scary at the same time?
Where does
Like
Eugene,
Clyde.
where does this fall in the timeline? Is this episode, does it take place before or after the 50th?
I want to say before, because when was the 50th?
Was that the 50th?
2013? 2013?
Yeah, this is 2008, right?
This is 2000. Yeah.
So this here is actually the first mention of the Black Archive and the first appearance of the Black Archive. So they then moved it to underneath the tower for the 50th.
That's good because security was lax at this place.
There's one gate, two
They
guards,
really needed an extra layer of protection.
no elevators.
Well, it's just the supervisor just happened to be walking around and noticed that somebody was there. Yeah, but they had all those cameras that didn't.
It didn't do anything until it needed to do something.
Well, I also didn't understand why disarming the cameras or breaking them somehow wasn't part of the plan. Like they were just going to march in there and take it with a million cameras staring at them. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
overthinking
It's
it.
the Brigadier. Are you going to question the Brigadier's actions?
Well, right, he's the one that should have
All
went
came
in.
out
It was all him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was only the Brigadier until the rest of them started wandering around inside like they belonged. But
Yeah, because it's Rani and Sarah Jane going into the archives. And where did the Brigadier go? Did he just like wander outside?
he was-
Hey, that's scientists guard the outside. But I think it would have been easier if they just put him inside where those people going, oh my gosh, the Brigadier, and they're talking to him, so they're not looking at the monitors.
Oh yeah, that would have been nice.
better.
Yeah.
Real quick little thing.
Yeah.
You don't need to have him in that scene as much because it seemed like he was only able to be there for a while. So it's like we got to take care of him, shoot around him, which was great. So glad to see Sarah and the Brigadier together. We got us to go watch some of the older episodes, even again.
Like even bringing that up where she goes right before they leave to go see him, she says, Ronnie, let's go. I need to see a friend, a very old friend. And then when she and Ronnie show up at his house, he has his back turned to them. And she says, I'm afraid this isn't
No, sorry to interrupt. Or
yeah, something like that. And then he turns around without seeing her and just recognizes her voice and says, Sarah Jane. I like that.
Yeah.
Like he knew her voice without even having to see her first.
Right.
And then after that, she goes, I'm afraid this isn't a social call. And he says, I would almost be disappointed if it were.
I really like, you know, a lot of the times when shows like bring back somebody who hasn't been on the show for 20, 30, 40 years, like, you know, they're older, so they might not be acting as well as they were before, but the Brigadier was dead on. He's like, yeah, you're still great. You know, you're still acting, you're still putting all the feels into how we should feel about the Brigadier. I was very happy about that.
Yeah, this was
definitely had a morbid moment though, where I was like, they're both gone now.
I know, man.
But I think like with the actor that played the Brigadier and Elizabeth Sladen and all of the doctors, like there is so much respect that goes into these roles that I, you know, more than a lot of other shows, I feel like Elizabeth Sladen takes the character of Sarah Jane seriously and, like, you know, is one of the stewards of that character, the same way I feel like a lot of the actors that have played the Doctor over the years, like, feel like they are entrusted with that character and have a lot of respect for it. I don't see that, you know, in other shows, but Doctor Who and like just the Britishness and I just feel it more in that, like, whenever anybody talks about their time with it, it's always with a lot of respect and they know like how much cultural weight the show and the history of it have.
I mean, I even think that's what brought Christopher Eccleston back into the Hooniverse because he got turned off by stuff that happened in production, but he saw that people really respect and are endeared toward this franchise. And now we got to see him at Comic-Cons, where if we had done this podcast, 10 years ago, we wouldn't even think that we would see him anywhere near the fandom.
Right.
And also the respect for him being the Doctor in that role and what he brought to it. So it's not just the Whoverse, but it's individually. He did well. He brought something to that Doctor that was unique and different, and it's appreciated.
And the same with the Brigadier and Sarah Jane.
I always liked that the Brigadier wasn't in awe of the Doctor as so many other people are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, even if they respect him or berate him, there's still that awe that they have of the Doctor. And the Brigadier just never had that. It was just, no, this is my job. You know your place, and I know my place.
Somebody's got to keep him humble.
It was really nice. And he was the same. It was great.
So a little bit of classic Who. The Brigadier worked with the Doctor in unit with the Third Doctor mainly, and then when the Third Doctor regenerated into the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, the Brigadier was very like, here we go again, as opposed to like, what's happening? I'm in shock of this. So yeah, that's one thing I like. Frank, you reminded me of that moment in classic Who.
I also like the call back to Tooth and Claw in that scene of him going into the warehouse.
You mean it's from Roswell?
Yeah, Rani says that, I believe.
Yeah.
No, the whole was
she not amused?
Sarah Jane saying that, Queen Victoria knew about aliens. And it's like, I bet she wasn't amused. No, I don't think she was. Because they were trying to get her to play that line in Tooth and Claw.
It's also really hard with a character named Luke, especially as an American who grew up more with Star Wars. Like, everything that they say involving Luke, like, I'm able to quote something from the original trilogy. Luke,
especially in this.
I am your mother.
Episode.
Yes.
Yep. It's like, you and me rule the world, stuff like that. I'm like, oh boy.
It is your destiny. Yeah.
I did like Sarah Jane also not wanting Unit to know about Luke.
Yes.
She likes Unit, knows what they can do and what they're good at, but then also knows where they'll go too far. So I thought that was a nice little bit. That was why she wanted to get the Brigadier.
Because my first thought was, why are you taking Rani? Take Luke, so that the Brigadier can help both of them, and then they get that line where she doesn't want them to know about him. Like, oh, that totally makes sense.
Totally.
I think with this show compared to the season of Doctor Who that we just got through with a lot of children, with this one, there was times where I felt like Clyde should have complained a little more. Like, you stay here at home while we go to the military base. I expected Clyde to put up a little bit of a fight with that, but I don't know if it was in the script. They didn't have him do that, and I think it really helped, at least as an adult watcher, not get as annoyed with these kids who were acting very mature. Like, you're right. Like, I will stay here doing the boring job of watching after another kid. You guys go to the secret base.
It's funny, Albert. You just said everything that was in my head. Like, I remember being so impressed with him because he didn't put up a fight at all. But also the way Sarah Jane asked him made it sound like a very important task, and so maybe that helped. But I because all his other lines were very comedic, and I was like, if anybody was going to be like, oh, I have to do the dumb job and stay home, I thought he was going to do that, and he didn't. But it just made me like Clyde even more.
Clyde is definitely the breakout character in this show.
Does he have
He's the best actor.
Yeah.
Does he have a bigger
I'll get to that at the end.
Okay.
But you bringing up Clyde and Luke staying behind, they did that so that Luke could have that character moment of Clyde has a bad relationship with his dad, and so Luke has a bad relationship with his biological mother, not his surrogate mother as in Sarah Jane. So that's why they had to be separated, so they could have that heart to heart.
I almost don't want you to say surrogate. I want you to just say his mother. Biological mother and mother.
Yeah. You know what I mean, though.
No, I do. It's just one of those. No,
That's the mother.
clarifications that
Yeah.
some people say that I just want. No, that's his mother.
Yeah. Sarah Jane is definitely fulfilling the motherly duties.
The
Found that
squid and the
moment-
not squid.
I found that moment really interesting too, because it's not very often that Doctor Who or shows in the Doctor Who universe touch on bad family relationships. They have in the past. I can think of a few episodes at the top of my head, but for the most part, it's just a very they skirt around things like that. So every time they really kind of go into a topic that's touchy like that, I find it very interesting.
Yeah. In a kid show like this, I feel it's not talking down to their audience, the kids, by addressing things that some of these viewers will be going through and experiencing.
Who hasn't been attacked by a squid?
This week, or is there?
Was attacked by a goat. Does that count?
Oh boy.
When were you attacked by a goat?
Is that a petting zoo? It was very frightening.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay, I recovered.
I don't think so.
With the Brigadier's help, they break into the Black Archive and steal the Tunguska Scroll. At the same time, the Bane attack Luke and Mrs. Wormwood. A Centauran appears and kills the one attacking Mrs. Wormwood. The Centauran is Cog, Mrs. Wormwood's partner and an old enemy of Sarah Jane. They take the scroll and Luke to where Ka has kept the consciousness of Horath. Mrs. Wormwood reveals that she doesn't want to save the galaxy. She wants to conquer it. She and Ka combine the two relics, which leads them to Horath's location, a stone circle in the country. There, they open a portal for Horath. Meanwhile, Sarah Jane's team encounters a Major from UNIT who turns out to be a Bane. But the Brigadier takes him out quickly with his handy gun in a cane. They race to the stone circle. At the portal, Ka realizes that Mrs. Wormwood has no interest in sharing power with him. He rushes at her, and together they fall into the portal, which implodes. Sarah Jane then destroys the scroll, and all is right in the world again.
A lot happened in that last paragraph.
I had no idea how to finish it.
The old gun and a cane trick.
Yeah, speaking of those TV tropes like that, something is hidden in plain sight. That's later becomes like a device to help the character out of a situation. They've had it the whole time type of thing. And then the other one is the Mrs. Wormwood wants to rule the galaxy with Luke.
Yes.
Right.
I'm like, that's just the Star Wars right there. But what I like, but what I like is that she's very convincing as an actress to Luke. Like, son and mother rule the world. Like, we can do right by the galaxy. And then Luke takes the scroll and goes, bye. He just immediately runs.
I love that.
So funny.
I agree with Luke though, man. I wasn't buying that. You know what else it reminded me of other than Star Wars was in Hook, when Captain Hook tries to make the kids like him.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, he's Captain Hook, bro. No matter what he says, he's evil. And that's what I was thinking for Luke too. I was like, he cannot be falling for this crap. And then which is not to say she wasn't very convincing. It's just like evil. That's classic evil people lines she was throwing there.
Mm-hmm.
But was she at all having any kind of feelings towards Luke? Did she want him to rule and to take over after she goes, or to have someone in her life? Because now her whole purpose has been gone because the Bane want to eat her. You know, they've turned their back on her and she's turned her back on them. So she has nobody. So
that's how I took it.
Part of it real or not?
I had it as part of it real.
Yeah, and I agree with Brian. I got the impression that as she spent time with him, which was short from what we could see, but I think it was probably a little longer in the time frame of the episode, that she found him very clever and interesting and was starting to realize that maybe he was more than just a failed experiment. So I agree with you, Brian, that I feel like her perception changed as time went on in these two episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
Still agree that Luke should have run with it, but it's you know, which was great. It just sort of, she had given this character a bit more depth. Like, I really like this actress. And it wasn't just because it was Luke, but it was her idea of, I created something I can use, and was going to use it to eat the earth. Now I can use it for something else. But then there was more to it that she put on top of it. But it doesn't make her good. It doesn't make her know exactly what love is. As Sarah Jane had said, you don't get that. You're still a monster. And she reverts right back to it. So I think there's something there, but I love that this had, it's a Sarah Jane, so it's a lighter tone, and more black and white, good, evil, that she was able to bring this to it. So it made this storyline for me more interesting, more fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. Like, this show is a fun watch. Anytime I want more Doctor Who, I'm like, Sarah Jane Adventures exists. Let's go back to that. Like, we just finished up season 8, first season with Capaldi, and the reason we're doing this is because the Brigadier shows up at the end, and I was like, this is the worst. So now the enemy of the Bane is the last televised appearance of the Brigadier. So I was like, let's do this because this is a lot of fun, and it shows you the Brigadier's character and his connection with Sarah Jane Smith, and how these two actors just like picked it up where they left it off several years, maybe decades ago. Yeah.
And it was interesting for me to watch because I have been hearing about this Brigadier for many, many years now. And I think I may have seen him in a couple of classic episodes, but not much. So I feel like this was a really good introduction to him for me, having had so much prior knowledge just from this podcast and hearing you guys speak.
And this one doesn't let you down like it did with season 7 with Matt Smith, where he calls to get help from the Brigadier, and then he's too late. He's already passed away. Oh, you're like, that's disappointing. And then you get Peter Capaldi with a cyberized Brigadier saluting, and I'm like, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on.
But when he passed away with Smith, that was sad, not really disappointing, just sad reality and a bit of an honor. I remember the way they put it in, I don't think was the best.
I think that's what I'm referring to. Their execution of that, not the sad part, but
the Brigadier as the Cybermen just hurt because the whole thing was our belief that people died. There is some heaven, depending on whichever religion you believe, or there's something afterwards. And the whole idea that the master stopped people from attaining that to go to her little cyber warehouse so she can then take them over. That's what hurts. And to have the Brigadier be one of those after all of that he had done, and just, okay, there's still issues there. Sorry.
Yeah.
This was a nice deal of the Brigadier bringing him back. I'm glad this, a nice last episode for him.
Yeah, I'm so glad that this exists in the Who canon. And
they did mention that Peru in this episode, and then when the wedding of Sarah Jane, he wasn't able to attend because he was in Peru.
Yeah.
So I did like that in Weather of Sarah Jane, that they did tie it into what was going on.
And it was all Major Kilburn's fault for sending him into Peru.
Yes. And this is where Luke just has to trip. Cog trips. I'm like, oh, that was just silly to stop him. It's like,
it was so the blocking of that was very odd because Cog saw that, okay, he's running into a corner, and he waited in that corner until he came out and tripped him.
But that was some original Doctor Who kind of stuff. So, I've seen things like that just in the classics, and it was a bit endearing. It was like, okay, we're just doing this kid's with the story, but it was funny. I did laugh.
Now I want to rewatch the trip.
No, you don't. Not really.
It's in episode 2. So I don't know about any of you, but when I saw Cog come out, I was expecting him to sound like Dan Starkey or Strax, but he didn't, and it threw me off for a little bit. So it was just weird that that's what the Centaurans sound like to me now, where this is before that was sort of established, where a lot of them have like S names as well, like Score, Strax. I think there's a Scar, maybe, I don't know.
That's another model of clone. But you know who this one did sound like? And I actually had to look it up to make sure it wasn't. It sounds like Toby Jones, the Doctor's, what was he? Dream Maker?
The Dream something.
In Amy's Choice. And then he's Zola. He's the...
Armin Zola.
Yeah, the Hydra operative who winds up in a computer in the MCU. He's in everything, actually. He's also Dobby.
He's also in the new Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny.
Oh. Yeah, because he kind of looks like what's his face from the original Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
He doesn't actually look very much like him. There's just something reminiscent about them. I don't.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about something else. Who in Raiders looks like Toby Jones?
The face melting guy.
Oh, Todd.
Yeah. I agree with you. There is a similarity, some kind of resemblance to each other.
I don't actually think they look like each other. I don't know quite what it is.
Oh, one thing before we move on, about Luke getting the scroll when she hands him the scroll. They never would have done this in Sarah Jane, but I just wanted him to take the scroll and smack her on the side of the head and then run, just knock her out.
But for her to give it to him.
But it also was funny that he just bolted.
Yes,
yeah, I know.
Very funny.
And then she's yelling after to stop him. But I think that moment is what made me think she really does have some kind of feeling for him, because she trusted him.
Because she just handed it to him.
Right. But then her whole idea, and that's something that I don't like with people talking about the idea of fate, is that later on she says, fate. That's why I had to be defeated by Sarah Jane, and why you had to stay with Sarah Jane so you could be human, so you can cross into this area of the circle where non-humans can't. And that's one thing I don't like about fate, because it's just a rationale for making things the way you want them rather than fate determining it. It's like, no, this just happened. It didn't happen for that reason. You were upset until now you're just trying to rationalize it.
I think it's a line from the X-Files where they talk about coincidence. They say, if coincidences are so contrived, then why do they feel like coincidences?
Right. I like that. I thought it was a fun line in the flower shop, where Sarah Jane is like, no, I never trusted you. And they're going after each other with the ring and the lipstick. And it was Battle of the Cosmetic Jewelry Counter.
And then they explain it away because the first lipstick gets squashed or crushed. And then at the stone circle, she pulls out another one, and Ronnie's like, you have another one? It's like, always. So it's like, okay, it's throwing that line.
Looks like someone who wouldn't have two?
Yeah.
One.
So I like that they threw in a line like we always mention, just throw in a line, and they did in this one. I'm like, thank you for listening.
And that they have to stop the car to speak.
Sorry, what?
No, the earthquake is going on, and I've driven through a lot of earthquakes, and people go, you didn't feel it? No, I was driving. Because a lot of times you don't feel it, or it's not as big while you're driving. And they went totally crazy with it, and then had to stop the car to talk, and then start the car again and go. That's one of those little tropes. It's like, okay.
I really like that they included the throwaway line of, she was about to fire her ring when she got thrown into the portal, and that's what imploded the portal. The portal, because it was like, I had forgotten, because I think I watched this 3 times, and I didn't catch that line until like the last time we watched it. And the whole time I was always thinking, well, they went through the portal. Why did it implode? Why? It's a portal. It's made to do that. So why would it blow up when somebody does that? And then it was, she was, it was the energy of the ring. I was like, thank you. Yes, that's good. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. That's another trope, is that the villains or the bad guy of the episode don't get outdone by the hero. It's something that they cause, or in this case, the other villain disposes of both of them. So that's very much of a kids show trope that I'm okay with in this case.
I also feel like, but I feel like you would have to be okay with it, because Sarah Jane isn't an alien, and she doesn't have boundless knowledge, and she's just a regular human. So it would be harder, even with Mr. Smith's help. It's still harder for her to defeat these enemies than it would be for the Doctor. So it's probably a lot easier for the enemies to essentially defeat themselves in the Sarah Jane Chronicles.
Yeah.
Oh man, Heather, that reminds me. There's this moment earlier on in maybe in the first episode, where Sarah Jane is solving something, and I don't even remember where it was. Maybe it's when they're going into the Black Archives. But she uses her sonic lipstick to solve something, and then she explains to, I guess maybe Rani, what happened. And I remember thinking, like, the Doctor would never do that. Like, the Doctor just solves, he just uses his sonic, or he uses his intelligence to just solve it, and then we move on. But like, it was cool to see Sarah Jane doing a very Doctor thing, but then explaining why it worked. And it was I just remember thinking, we're like, oh, that's cool, because there are many times when I'm watching Doctor Who where I'm like, wait, how did that work? Like, how did that there's no explanation, and then it made me think, be like, well yeah, like no one cares how this happened, but it's like, but we do. So it was interesting.
Or he just
I mean, speaking of those persons, like Phil Ford has written for Doctor Who previously, and then Graham Harper, he's one of the few that have directed classic Who and modern Who. So I feel like he's a veteran that knows what to do.
Well, it's almost like, from a writer's perspective, it's like when the Doctor and the companion get separated, how does the companion get back to the Doctor alive? It's like only writing half of a Doctor Who episode in a way.
Oh, that's a good way to describe it.
I'm thinking of this as from the writer's brain, like there's always situations that the companions get out of without the Doctor's help. How do they do that? And that's where you'd have to come from that perspective. And obviously she has a few extra things to help her, which connects her more with the Doctor. But yeah, that's kind of how I look at it from a writing perspective. And that's what I saw when I watched the episode.
You saying that reminded me of, I think, the end when the Bane explodes onto Clyde. Is that right?
Oh yeah, gross.
Oh,
And Luke.
after them fighting with the hose.
Yeah. I wonder if the actors did enjoy that, because they're kids and they want to.
I'm sure they did.
Messy.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's something that they got out of, but they got out of it in a messy way.
They didn't. I mean, the characters didn't care. They were like, "Good job." I would have been like, "Did you have to do that?" Well, I was standing right there. But that's just me. I'm not Clyde. Clyde is so cool. He's the one who he knew right away where that Stonehenge place was. He's like, "Oh yeah, I went on a lame field trip once to that place."
Again, a throwaway line that goes, "I know where that is."
But I totally bought that, because I was like, yeah, that's totally the kind of place that
absolutely,
they would have taken me on a field trip too, growing up in the middle of nowhere over here. So
what it makes it more for me is that when he arrives there, he goes, "This didn't look like this the last time I was here."
Right. Just, stay away from stone circles. You've got Pandorica underneath Stonehenge. You've got a portal underneath this one. And what's the Outlander one? You get thrown through time.
Yeah, but you get Jamie Fraser. So great.
It's funny how you rolled your R's.
That's all I could do is just say his name.
Unless you're his son-in-law, then it's not a good trip.
I think I like these shows a lot because of what we mentioned earlier, where every scene or line serves a purpose. There's no meandering that kind of Doctor Who has sort of a luxury of doing when you have two-parters. These are clearly one story broken up into two parts, as opposed to one part is just like tonally different. And I'm thinking of Death in Heaven and whatever the last two were.
Dark Waters? Or...
Dark Water.
Dark Water and Death in Heaven, where tonally they're different, but they're telling a finale story. I can see the connective tissue, but visually they're also different.
And a lot of other ones we had talked about where there's a cliffhanger, they wrap that up within the first 5 minutes, and then there's a different thing that they have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So these are one continuous story, complete, broken in half. Did you see I thought, production error at the end of the show? With the Brigadier driving away?
Is it the reverse angle? Is that a reverse shot? No?
That the one-way street goes both ways?
Oh, that thing. No, I did not notice that.
So here, I'm showing it here. The picture of him going away. He has to get from the right lane where he was parked to the left. It's a one-way street, so they're all going in the same direction. And, oops, where'd it go? Come on. Sorry. Give it a second. So Sarah Jane's saying goodbye to him. Pulls over, drives away. All the cars are going you see the back of the cars on that same road. And all the back of the cars on that road.
Oh, they're parked different. Yeah, okay.
So they're all parked away from Sarah Jane's house, where they look like they're one-way street going both ways, and hers is a division. It just the shot was just odd. I just noticed everything's parked backwards on both sides of the street. Not a big deal. It really is not a big deal. It's just watching it again, just popped out to me, and I just thought it was funny. Small little bloop.
I didn't notice. I watched this episode at double speed. I couldn't log into Max, so I found it on YouTube. Eugene did send me a link, but I had already started watching this YouTube link on my TV that was at double speed for copyright purposes. And I was like, this is fine. I'm already watching. So I just kept going. Everybody sounded mildly chipmunky, but it all came together in the end.
But the universe is still full of surprises. A Centauran saves the galaxy.
You know, I always like Sarah Jane Smith's ending season speeches.
Yeah.
Because they're very nice. They're almost inspiring.
Yes.
Almost.
I didn't want to say they are, but I didn't want to say like that's all they are. There's like more that goes into my feelings when I hear her talk. Because I'll read the one from The Last Centauran, which is the one where Maria left, and then the next episode is where Rani moves in. So this is sort of the farewell to Maria. This is Sarah Jane. I learned a long time ago that if you're missing somebody, just look up at the sky. Whoever it is, wherever they are, chances are they're looking at the stars just like you. Sometimes, for all its size, the universe isn't such a big place after all. Like, these writers really, like, I don't know, is it weird that I like a kid's show?
You're talking to adults who like the show, so no, I don't think so.
So yeah, I just thought that was a nice way to say farewell to Maria.
How you solve the problem.
This show, I think, it's just I don't think it gets enough credit. It's a good spin-off. It's probably my favorite spin-off.
And this was also created by Russell T Davies.
Yes.
Do you I mean, who knows, but do you foresee like more spin-offs, like if he kind of did this before with them and like coming with this new reboot, if they find characters? Is that kind of something Russell has done with other shows that he has run?
I don't think he's done anything like this big of a franchise. His previous stuff has been more personal, character driven, and like intimate, I guess you could say. Where this is a juggernaut. like it's somebody were to do Star Wars and you had all these spin-offs that you could do. I don't think Russell's ever done anything quite like this. I also don't know who they would spin off now.
Right, we'd have to see some new characters coming into whatever he has imagined. But that would be cool to get like another Doctor Who Renaissance to blast a few more stories out there.
I mean, there is the whole Tegan Ace unit. That's a possibility that they just showed up now. So it's like, huh?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Who knows?
That's right. I'll go through the cast real quick. So we have Elizabeth Sladen playing Sarah Jane Smith. Sadly, she passed away in 2011. The same year that Nicholas Courtney playing Sir Alistair Gordon Lethbridge-Stewart passed away. So it was a sad time in 2011 when we lost both of those classic Who actors. Tommy Knight plays Luke Smith. He played Archibald Brody in Victoria, the Victoria with Jenna Coleman. Anthony Daniel plays Clyde Langer, and he hasn't acted in anything since 2016, so I don't know what's going on with him, if he went to university or just pursued other avenues.
Which is a shame because he was the best actor on the show.
I agree, yeah.
So yeah, Clyde hasn't done much since then, except for in recent history, he did these shorts, or interstitials as we call them, in the States, that they paired with a couple classic Who episodes, Earthshock, Mind Robber, Vengeance on Varos, The Three Doctors, Time Meddler, and The Curse of Fenric. So Joe Grant and Clyde Langer were paired together for The Three Doctors. So it was nice to see Clyde come back, and I don't know, it's like he wasn't connected to those classic Who, but I'm glad that they brought him back to talk, kind of bounce things off with Joe Grant from when they appeared together in the Wedding of Sarah Jane episode.
Yeah, it was at first when I read that, it was like, well, that's an interesting choice, but good to see Clyde. But turned out it was the best one.
Yeah. And so these would play in between the beginning and the end of, I think, the particular stories that they aired and they chose to air, and I think they edited them into a movie, so there was no part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. It was just one. It was the beginning of the previous companions and sometimes the Doctors,
and then the episode all strung together, or story strung together, and then they would do something at the end, I believe. Or commercial breaks, because there's more than just two. It depends on what they wanted to do to break up the story as a edited together story. But speaking of that, these were done for the 60th, I believe, and it was nice to see some of these doctors and their companions back again, like the Fifth Doctor with Tegan.
Although, what I thought was interesting is we just saw them.
I know.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying don't bring them back, but we did just see them, so that wasn't quite as emotional.
Yeah, because they were together for the Earthshock episode, and then Vengeance on Varos was the Sixth Doctor and Perry, and the Curse of Fenric was the Seventh Doctor and Ace. And we saw both Ace and Tegan in Jodie Whittaker's farewell. So yeah, it's like, oh, they're back. But I like the idea of a memory TARDIS because they created a set that allowed these doctors and companions, and sometimes companions and companions, to kind of just reminisce about their time in the TARDIS. So it wasn't like something that was in continuity or out of continuity. It was just a place they could go and revisit memories.
And it looked like it was just a cheap set, you know. There was only one side to it, but I did love how part of it was upside down. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I think at one point the Seventh Doctor pushes some buttons with his umbrella on the ceiling, sort of thing.
Yeah. That
was fun. I don't know. There is something that makes me emotionally connected to these little interstitials. It's nice that they did them. They didn't have to, but I kind of like that. Yeah,
it was fun to see. You know, like I said, I like the Clyde Joe one the best, and I think I like that one the best because in that one, Clyde actually had like a character arc.
Yes.
You know, they all like visited and then they all went away. Then their visit all stopped. But Clyde, it seemed, now had a new purpose, you know, to go find Rani.
Yeah, so remember we were talking earlier about spin-offs, and since we're doing the Sarah Jane episode now, I think maybe there's a second life to these characters from Sarah Jane Adventures. I'm hoping, that's all.
Yeah. I don't know. We're kind of in new territory now, and they keep saying spin-off. So I would not mind Clyde being back, or Rani.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, Clyde was the strongest character, best actor, I think, of the show.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Ronnie's good too. I mean, she's shown up in a couple other things.
Yeah, but not as Rani in the Queen of Skithra, I think.
Right.
But she's also been in Big Finish audio dramas, also not as the Rani character. But
right.
I don't know if she's. Yeah, it's nice to see her, that she's still in the Doctor Who universe.
And I think I kind of sort of remember seeing her in other things, but
like Doctor Who related or just other things in general?
Just other things in general.
Oh yeah. She's doing stuff. She's still acting.
I'm just looking her up to see what do I recognize her outside of Sarah Jane from? Because there was something. I don't know. Are you talking about it? She was in one episode of Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
And I do, it was like, oh, look, it's Rani, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's all I remember her from.
So, these interstitials are not available in the US as they were broadcasted or intended like they were in the UK, but you can find them on YouTube. And they're there is an order, so if you watch them, I think you can figure out the order.
I kind of just watched them in the way they loaded on my computer. So I just clicked at the oldest one, kept going. I did see some of them kind of out of chronological order, but you get the gist.
Yeah, you do. You can piece it together. Anjali Mohindra plays Rani Chandra. She played Beatrice in The Peripheral on Amazon Prime, and she was Queen Skithra with the 13th Doctor in Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. And she's also done Big Finish Doctor Who audio dramas, and I was fortunate enough to see her the last time we went to Gallifrey 1 at one of the panels, so that was really nice to hear her talk about her adventures with Daniel Anthony, Clyde Langer, because they were young kids at the time and they were just wanting to party and get into trouble after production wrapped up on certain shoots. Then we have Alexander Armstrong, who plays Mr. Smith, or the voice of Mr. Smith. He voices the new Danger Mouse, the one that came out in 2015. We mentioned Samantha Bond as Mrs. Wormwood, who plays Moneypenny in the Pierce Brosnan era of James Bond. Anthony O'Donnell plays Cog. Meena Anwar plays Geeta Chandra, and she is still acting. Her credits are very large, and there is nothing that I've watched. It's all mostly UK television. Ace Bahati plays Harish Chandra, which is the father of Rani. He is also still acting. The last thing I remember him in was Bohemian Rhapsody. He played the dad to Freddie Mercury, if you guys remember that movie that was nominated. And Simon Chadwick plays Major Kilburn. So originally, you know what? I thought so at first, but I think they needed that for the kids aspect of the show. They needed a mustache twirling villain.
but no, he's just bad.
Was it him or was it the character?
I wanted it to be the character, but at the moment I kept watching going, no, it's just you.
I disagree. I thought he played his role the way he was meant to play it. It was a lot more one-dimensional than Miss Wormwood.
That is true.
But that's what they want. That's what they wanted. That's what they got. I thought he did fine.
Oh, speaking of that, I like that he wears the traditional Brigadier type of uniform that I'm used to seeing him in Classic Who. And then you have the soldiers wearing the unit tactical gear that we've seen in modern Who. So I like the combination of both of them in this one episode.
Yes.
So originally, Freema Agyeman was supposed to be in this episode, but they couldn't get her because of scheduling conflicts with, at the time she was on Law and Order UK. So that's how they approached Nicholas Courtney, and they got him, and I think it worked out.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry for Freema, she would have been great, but I'm so glad they got Nicholas Courtney.
I know. As of right now, the Sarah Jane Adventures, all seasons, are on Max, the streaming service Max, and they're out on DVD, but they're kind of expensive. So if you feel like you want more Doctor Who in your life, I highly recommend the Sarah Jane Adventures. It's just fun, good viewing. So that wraps up Enemy of the Bane. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You just listened to an episode of Who Knew? Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
Additional music is by Damiel Paggio.
Additional music by Paul Ohlers.
All our episodes are engineered by Alburn, and you can find him at alburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, subscribe to us on Amazon Music,
and then ask your Amazon device to play your podcast subscriptions.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history,
and especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sidney Newman,
Verity Lambert, Ron Grainer,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.